Welcome to Pat's Cast, the unofficial Regina Pats podcast. It's episode 157. It's December 19th tonight. We got Kevin here, and we got Drew there, and Chris hosting as usual. How are we tonight, folks?
Well, there's still no snow, so I'm happy. I know there's a lot of farmers that would appreciate it, but my back isn't the best when it comes to shoveling, so I'm enjoying the warmer December weather. I don't know about you guys, but I like it.
It's been unbelievable. We're going to have pretty much a brown Christmas by the looks of things.
Yeah, where we could, yeah.
And the temperatures are unbelievable. It's
Definitely.
It's nice.
El Nino.
I can't park in my garage right now, so I'm happy there's not much snow.
No window scrape. Well, window scraping,
Yeah.
but no big snow brushes in the morning, yeah.
And the car hasn't been too cold in the morning, so it's nice. But yeah, so we're here to kind of wrap up the unofficial first half of the season. We got the Christmas break here. And yeah, so we thought we'd bring Drew on. He's been on before if you haven't heard, but thanks for coming out tonight.
Not a problem.
Yeah, and talk some Pats hockey tonight. Kind of just go over the first half. Kind of what were our expectations of this team kind of going into this season. Kind of we talked about it, I don't know, kind of at the end of last year, we weren't too sure what to expect, and maybe the team overachieved a bit at the start, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. For me, the optimism was pretty low. I'll admit that I was probably wrong because the start was pretty solid, especially at home, and it's a team now that kind of has us conversing back and forth before we started recording tonight. What direction do they take with the trade deadline now only 3 weeks away? Because they've overachieved, or they did early on anyway.
The expectations were really high. They got high because they started off so strong, and then all of a sudden they hit a big lull, and everybody kind of jumped off the bandwagon, so to speak.
It's weird. Like, the team was playing so well. I don't know if they were taking other teams by surprise. It seemed really Brad had instilled that work ethic, and we really seen that the four lines and just playing hard because they knew it was going to be a scoring by committee group. There wasn't, any superstar left here. Not to take anything away from the guys that are here, but I think everybody bought in, and I don't know if there's a couple different issues that kind of not sunk this team, but kind of got them into that like lull there. Like you talk about the Whitehead injury. The goaltending was good, and then they kind of changed it up, and then it kind of took a step back, and it was unfortunate there, and now you're thinking like, well, what does this team do going forward? But it's some odd situation, right? Like this team next year, right? You're looking at it next year, and it's like, what are they going to do next year? You got all these old guys, stuff like that. Can they come back and not make a run, but it's like, what are they going to do?
Do they want to stay old and try to make a push for the playoffs?
Yeah.
Or do they want to get younger and hope for better next year and the year after, build for the Cole Temple Corbin Allman years?
Yeah, it really is a crossroads, and I'm kind of with the latter there. I think, in junior hockey, why barely make the playoffs and, get ousted in the first round or in the second round, even if you're likely to be matched up against a team that you've played well against in the regular season? Why not just build for the years where you can have high expectations in the playoffs? So I've always kind of had the mindset of, okay, maybe we can be a bubble playoff team, but why not build to be a team that can compete in the playoffs? And if I had to, if I was making the decisions, obviously I'm not. There's a reason I'm doing the games on the radio, because some of the decisions I make probably wouldn't be in the team's best interest. But I kind of think, you got to be playing guys like Cole Temple and Corbin Allman a lot right now, even if that means, more character wins than 2 points in the standings, because it just seems like this is a team that's right on the bubble. And like I said, when you're right on the bubble in junior hockey, my opinion has always been to sell and build for the years where you're not on the bubble. You're a team that has high expectations.
But a lot of teams really just want to make the playoffs so they can get a little bit of money coming in.
That's a whole nother issue,
yeah. So,
especially with the economy these days.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Once teams make the playoffs, a lot of teams tend to make money, not just barely break even.
Yeah.
Even if it's just 2 games, like a lot of teams would beg for 2 games.
Yeah, that's the thing. That it's such a catch-22, and like on the hockey side of it, there's what I said, but I didn't even know it. I didn't even think about that, and that's an excellent point. I mean, there's teams that are really just probably not even breaking even that couple of years ago would have been probably turning a profit, but just with the way things have gone as of late, I didn't even think of that.
And I think some of the smaller market teams, like they plan for the regular season, right? And playoffs. Anything playoffs is a bonus. That's where they make their money, right? They'll break even, maybe make a little bit in the regular season. And some of those teams, like, okay, if we don't sell or we don't buy, but we don't really sell either, and we kind of just every year we're decent, and you can make 1, maybe 2 rounds,
kind of like the Pats, the Parker era,
and just collect just collect a little bit of money, especially those small market teams, right? They need those couple extra 2, 3, maybe 4 home gates, right?
Exactly.
To make that extra profit. But yeah, it is, like you said, it's such a catch-22. And Kevin and I have talked about this before. The team is old, and you're not getting those younger guys experience that are going to be playing next year. Like we talked about the 320s on D, like
plus a 19 on D.
Plus a 19. There's your top 4 could all be gone next year.
Yeah. So that's
right, and you're not getting these young guys experience, especially on the forward group where they have some good young talent that should be playing some more.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line. Like, sure, you can have those veteran guys back there that can really help Bridgman and Kristanowicz to a sense, but when those 2 guys don't get to play because your 320-year-olds are eating up all those minutes just because, well, obviously they're the more effective players, it almost has the reverse effect. And
you're not developing those younger guys for the next couple of years.
Sure, they're learning lots in the locker room and through conversations, but they're not getting that on-ice experience when you have those 320-year-olds back there.
And if they keep the 320s for the end of the season, and then next year, what do? They bring in more 20s to do the same thing for the year after?
Yeah,
and the year
it's
after,
almost
just a continuation, or do they completely go rebuild next year? Like that, just I don't know. It's
that's the thing. You got
intriguing.
5 20-year-old forwards next year, so right, plus a D-man. So you got 6 20s next year. So you're losing 3 for nothing.
Automatically, yeah.
So
for people that don't follow this team, I think they'd be surprised to hear that the average age of this hockey club is just about 19 years old. I think they'd be really, really surprised to hear that. Even I was surprised when I looked at that at the start of the season, and then I was like, okay, there's actually some players that have been here together for 3 or 4 years, and maybe that played into the early season success that they had a little bit. There was guys that were very familiar with each other and had developed some chemistry that, I guess maybe we didn't pay super close attention to it last year, obviously with Connor Bedard here and Stanislav Svozil, but that's maybe one of the things that was overlooked a little bit.
And when back to the whole Braxton Whitehead injury, the Pats were flying until the 12th game, and then I don't know if it was just what happened with that injury kind of got in their heads, or something happened. All of a sudden they just fell off the tracks and just went way totally off their game. They had some really bad stinker games after that, but before that they were really strong every game. It was, I don't know what to say.
It was weird. We talked about it, but like, is Braxton Whitehead the heartbeat of this team?
Like, the straw that stirs the drink.
Yeah, and he got off to a good start. He had 6 goals in those first few games.
Yeah,
12 points in 12 games.
There you go. Yeah.
Now 5 assists in the 3 games that he's been back. So he's obviously an offensive threat for the team. And I know when you talk to the players, they just rant and rave about how great of a person he is and how beneficial he is in the locker room. So that can be a big reason, because a lot of times those guys, they're not going to travel when they're injured and you're on the road and stuff. So
yeah, I know his offense didn't take a back seat, but definitely he didn't. He was focusing more on his defensive game, and so maybe this year was maybe a little bit of a surprise for him, that offensive output. And you look at it, he's still 5th in team scoring, and he missed almost half the games as everybody else has played. So that maybe speaks to the rest of the depth of this team as well.
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. It's something to see with Braxton Whitehead this year, because he had always been kind of in that shutdown role, and then all of a sudden there he is in the top 3 and the top 6 role, night in and night out almost. But
he was thriving,
and he really was, yeah. And he was playing power play time and stuff like that a lot more than he did last year. So I think the way he's gone, he could easily be a 70-point player this year if he continues to play the way he's played and stays healthy.
He has the potential to be there, yeah. But like you said, stay healthy. But I do really think he is the straw that stirs the drink.
Yeah, and like we talk about who's going to be back next year. I mean, it's like he's obviously one guy that is staying, I think. Like, unless somebody just comes in and overwhelms Alan Miller with some crazy offer, it's a guy that is clearly a leader on and off the ice. Like, nothing to take anything away from Hal, but I think he's more of the on ice leader. Like, I think he's the, go as I play kind of thing. And even just talking to Braxton Whitehead, he just coming back from this injury, and like I think he's like that off ice guy that really is bringing these guys together.
Braxton Whitehead's probably wearing the C on a lot of other teams in the Western Hockey League if he's there. And you're right, that's taking nothing away from Tanner Howe. He's an excellent lead by example type player. And if Tanner Howe by some chance is not here next year, I think Braxton Whitehead is the player that wears the C.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then I think one of the other big things was the goaltending, and I know Kevin and I talked about that, and it seemed to be working. Going back and forth.
And then all of a sudden they switched it up to Huey getting a few starts in a row, and all of a sudden things started going south a little bit, or quite a bit.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's all on him either.
No, but things. I didn't say things with him. I said things. Everything kind of went south.
Yeah, at the same time, losing Whitehead,
and Temple going to the under 17s or whatever that took 2 forwards out of the top 6 at the time.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's a little bit, lost some chemistry there. Team maybe struggled to find some new chemistry with some new line mates or whatever it was.
Line mates? The blender lines?
Yeah.
They're never the same.
No, they aren't, but.
Can't find chemistry if they're not the same.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother issue.
I think the goaltending is a big thing, though. I think it's to the point now where someone just has to step up and grab that number one position. And my crazy theory is, and you can call me crazy and say, oh, he's looking a little bit too much into it, was early on these two guys were competing with each other. It was healthy, friendly competition, and maybe they kind of got a little bit complacent and thought, okay, we're 1A, 1B. Maybe that affects your play a little bit when you're not competing for a position and think, okay, we're splitting the games for the rest of the season. And that maybe that's a theory that's way out there, but sports psychology is really, really something that's not talked about a lot. And you never know what can happen in a player's head. You're competing for a position early on, and then maybe it's just human nature. You get a little bit complacent when you think, okay, we're 1A and 1B. But I really think someone's just got to step up and grab that number one position.
And now that they've got Malacca here, they've got 3 goalies. What do?
Is he here for the rest of the season? Who knows?
He's got a Pat's mask. I don't know if that means anything or not, but he has a Pat's mask.
Yeah, he's played 1 game, and like we said in this week's episode, he hasn't played much this year. So is he getting thrust into a role here? Well, he is now, but when Huey comes back, what's the situation there?
If they're going to have to do something with a goalie, what do they do? Which one moves? What do? Do they send him back to get some more seasoning, or what?
Yeah, right. Like. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you're gonna have 2 19s next year as well, right?
If they keep both, they'll have 2 19s.
Like we've talked about, it's not the most ideal situation,
and you don't want to carry 3 after the deadline either. You need to get down to 2.
Malacca needs to play. He hasn't played much this year, so I think he has go down to AAA, back to AAA, and continue to play.
I don't know. But all depends on what happens after Christmas. They play 4 games in 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
He's going to be playing a couple of those games probably.
Yeah.
I guess it all depends on how he plays.
Yeah, if he doesn't show well, I think he's just a victim of his age because he's still young by goaltender standards in this league. I think that his age is just he's just a victim of his age and goes back. But if he comes out and stands on his head or has a really good showing, then he could push somebody out because, like I said, Kelton Pine and you and Huey, no one's just grab that number one position this year. They've both shown flashes that they're capable. It was October, that one night where Huey put on one of the best goaltending performances that anybody's seen in years in the Brandt Center. So they're both capable, but someone's just got to grab it. And if they don't, then all of a sudden you could have this 17-year-old playing a lot of the games in January, February, and March.
And Malacca played well in his only game with the Pats, so he's the only one to get a point out of Edmonton.
Yeah, that's That's an interesting story there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oil Kings have the Pats number.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like we've kind of covered a few of these kind of topics that I had written down. Like, what moves is Alan Miller going to make? Like, obviously we can't predict it, but
He's said he wants to get bigger and he wants to get younger. How does he do that? He's got to get rid of the older guys. What older guys? Who knows? Because, like we've said, they have 6 19s and the 320s on defense. And you can only keep 3 of those guys for next year.
Yeah, Pats fans will hate to hear it because he's a fan favorite, but like you said before we started recording, and I agree with you, and I thought the same thing, Parker Berg could bring you a lot for the future. You're going to have 2 pretty good top 6 forwards in Cole Temple and Corbin Allman. It seems to me like Kristanowicz and Bridgman could turn into solid defensemen. Obviously, Corbin Vaughn, who's injured right now, has just leaps and bounds really become a really, really good defenseman for this team.
Yeah. They miss him.
And they're missing him now, yeah. And, you wouldn't have said that last year when he was out. But and Jackson Vaughn, too, on the forwards. But you really seem like you have 3 core defensemen that are young that you can build off of, 2 young forwards that you can build off of. So I think the time is now to really give Parker Berg the opportunity to go to a team that's expecting to go far this year. And if you're the Pats, you can build to the future because there's some pieces there. And you can see that if there's some moves made, maybe they're just 1 or 2 moves away from really building a team that can contend in a couple of years.
yeah, and that's the thing though. Moving the 20, there's only a couple teams out there that don't have a full complement, so you're gonna most likely have to bring back a 20.
And like you said, if you're looking for high draft picks, a lot of those teams that are competing this year don't have the first rounder to give you.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's
wide
easier
open.
said than done.
Definitely, it's kind of wide open who's actually buying this year too. Like, there's the obvious like Saskatoon, Moose Jaw. They've made some moves already.
Saskatoon made some moves.
Yeah,
Prince George may make some moves.
that's the thing out west. Prince George, Portland's made a move.
Wenatchee's doing really well, but do they make moves to make themselves better and really sacrifice the rest of their history?
They almost have no.
They have no draft capital, so they
At
need
all.
to build that back up somehow.
And they've got a good team. It's just, what do these new owners want to do? Like, what's the appetite in Wenatchee for this team? Like, it's an interesting situation because it's still a good team, but like I said, they have 4, I think, top 5 draft picks in the next 3 years. That's in the top 5 rounds. So
Yeah.
out of 15 picks, they have 4.
Not very many.
Not at all. But they're quite possibly one of the best teams in the West. Like, imagine if they got Benson back. Like, they would probably be the best team in the West.
By far.
I wonder if they can swing a deal with Medicine Hat or a team like that. I think Medicine Hat is one of the top teams that still has a first, if I'm correct, that they could get.
They've got lots. I don't know if it's their. I mean, I'm not saying it's not their year this year, but they're probably a little ahead of schedule. Do they want to bring in a 19, or are they looking to get someone a little younger?
And they're another team that has 3 goalies. They still haven't decided who the starting goalie is either.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, I think Berg is almost the same as the Riker Evans situation 2 years ago, and they didn't pull the trigger on that, and missed the playoffs. I mean, I understand they want to make playoffs with Bedard, just get in that first round and try to build off that for last year, but it didn't work out. So I don't know. And this year, I don't want to say anything against these guys, but you want to build this team, like Drew was saying, with these younger guys, and Berg, his value isn't any higher, and I don't think it can get much higher.
No, definitely not.
So you almost got to sell high.
And he's playing so good right now
He
with
is,
that
like,
hat trick against Kelowna to close out the home schedule pre-Christmas.
3 assists the night before.
6 points in 2 nights is
Yeah.
tough to do as a defenseman, and he's just so smart. I was talking on the night he got the hat trick. He doesn't wind up and take the big slap shot from the point. That puck has eyes whenever he throws it towards the net because he's so smart from the blue line.
Yeah, he's not flashy. He's not a Sfozel out there. He just goes about his business, and
He's not your prototypical power play quarterback either.
no, but it's coming around though. Now that he's got more time.
Yeah.
It's coming around, and like I said, he's the top plus minus guy on the team, and he plays all the top minutes against the top lines, like that number is even almost more telling of his game than his points.
For sure.
But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting situation there. I think PG is maybe one of the teams that has an open 20 that I'm sure that they wouldn't.
From what I understand, they're holding out for their defenseman. What's his name? Samson, I think.
Ethan Sampson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're holding out for that, but it's getting close to the deadline, and they do have a spot open.
That, I mean, Berg, I'm sure, would slide right into there. But yeah, kind of the other issue, the road record, right? Like,
ouch.
Yeah, it's
This
the whole
past weekend
season.
was just the third road win.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they started at home, if they were playing 500 hockey on the road, we'd probably be having an entirely different conversation about if they rebuild or not.
No probablys
because
about it. They would be
yeah.
told they'd
They'd be right up there.
Oh yeah, they'd
Yeah.
have like 4 or 5 more wins.
Like they lost 9 in a row, so you give them, say, even just 3. Just go 3-6 on the
Yeah.
road. Like 30%, not 0 for 9.
It's funny because John Paddock has fingerprints all over this team still, and his big thing about the road was it's a hockey rink. A hockey rink's a hockey rink. So it's kind of a mystery as to why that's happened this year. I mean, bus legs can be a thing, but these guys are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, 16 in some cases. So
there's enough
young and ready
veteran
to
guys
go.
that have done this multiple times.
They've traveled. They've been on that U.S. road swing that goes
Exactly,
2.5 weeks. So it really is a mystery to me.
It's
I mean,
100%. Yeah.
And I mean,
I-
the teams put them in good situations, like that early Remembrance Day game in Brandon. It was 2:00, so they went out the night before. You go the day before to Medicine Hat, so the team is, as on the back end, they've put them in good positions, not going the day of on some of these trips, and try to give them a good situation to.
And when things don't work, they've switched it up travel wise, and it still hasn't worked.
and it's funny because I know this is going way back, but the very first game of the season, they went down early in Brandon, and then boom, they fire off like 5 unanswered goals or something like that. So I know that's it's very different at the start of the regular season, but to me, they've shown that they're capable on the road just in that one game alone. And then obviously this past weekend in Lethbridge, that 5-2 win was a more solid effort as well, but. That's something that'll have to be rectified if this is a team that wants to push for one of the final playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. And my guess is as good as anybody's. I honestly can't answer it.
And all 3 of these last games were winnable games.
Yeah,
And they did pull 4 to 6 points, which was great, but they needed to get some W's in there.
yeah.
Just
I think you got to
build some more confidence.
beat a team like Edmonton. I mean, I know it's always tougher on the road, but you got to be beating teams like that.
You can't lose 3 out of 3 against Edmonton, who have won 9 games on the season.
Yeah, no, that's almost unacceptable, right? So you bring up a point there, Drew. They won the first game on the road. They just won a game on the road. They've won 1 game in between that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a long time, and it's just
It's a head scratcher
yeah,
too
it's-
for me.
It's
Anyway.
unfathomable to go that long without a win on the road.
But go back to the Whitehead injury, they won like 4 games without him in the lineup.
That too, yeah.
So
it was a struggle.
Is he the straw that stirs the drink, like I keep on saying?
I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, I just when you interview him
The
and
confidence.
like I said, when you hear what the players say about him, I think you're absolutely bang on with
Yeah,
that.
he's so outgoing. So I don't know what the word is, but like
The team
he's
seems to have swagger when he's in the lineup.
yeah. And but I mean, just talking to him, like he's got that personality where he draws people to him. Like he's so friendly, so outgoing, right? It really seems like he's that kind of guy that he just brings everybody together. All right, so kind of going back to the struggles there. I mean, we've talked about this team is older, and they're not getting the greatest production out of some of these guys that maybe we expected from. You have guys going quite a few games without scoring a goal. Some of these older guys, right? I know Spencer really struggled there for a bit. Not struggled, but just wasn't able to put a puck in the net. Like Remba, you see the flashes here and there. Seems like Vallis has kind of turned the corner here a bit. He's got 4 game goal streak here.
Yeah, points in 7.
Yeah, so he's
Going
kind of
into the
come
break.
around. So it's like I think they expected more for some of these older guys, right? And that's maybe why they didn't move a lot of them last year. Like they only moved the Armstrong and and stuff like that. So it's maybe a little disappointing on that front.
Yeah, 15 games without a goal for Ty Spencer was surprising. I guess a guy's snake bitten, but then I know he turned it around there and had goals in 3 straight before the road trip. And Sam Aremba's just become known as kind of a streaky scorer, and it sucks to say that because of what he did with Brady Burney and the Regina Vics in minor hockey and breaking all those records. And he was actually last year was one of the prospects that was listed for the upcoming NHL draft. And whatever it is about Sam Aremba, I know we've all tossed back a few theories back and forth before we started recording, was that he's a point a game player for 3 games, and then you don't really see him for 5 or 6 games, and we all kind of had our own theories on that, but he would be another one of those guys. And Zachary Shantz was such a force in that playoff series. It seemed like he was a 17-year-old that was going to come back and be an 18-year-old in his prime in the Western Hockey League. And for whatever reason, whether it's he's been playing more of a shutdown role or he just doesn't gel well when the lines are juggled as much as they have been, he just hasn't been able to kind of find the scoring touch that I think some of us, or a lot of us, thought that he'd probably have after playing so well in that series against the Blades last April.
Yeah, I don't know if that was just kind of the playoff juice kind
There's
of thing.
definitely that too,
right?
yeah. There's that extra mode to get up and go for sure.
And now you're in the long haul of a season. Like this is his first full season, right? So
Yeah, lots of a grind.
yeah, he didn't play a lot last year. He was hurt last year, right? So it's interesting. Like you said, he was only 17 last year, but 18 this year. It's kind of
The expectations were high for a lot of guys, and a lot of them, unfortunately, haven't even got close to what we were expecting and what I'm sure the Pats were expecting from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think a guy like Zane Rowan, he's been here for 4 years now, right? Like, he's a guy, he is definitely in that shutdown role kind of thing that him and Barnett have kind of gelled with there. We talked about chemistry. Those guys kind of stick together, but I thought he had more. Like, it seemed like he had more offensive.
He shows signs.
Like, he had more offensive game, it seemed, in the last couple of years than he does this year for whatever reason. Like, to only have 1 goal, it's
he showed a lot of skill too in the Kamloops Kelowna home games before this 3-3 Alberta swing. With some of he made a couple really nice moves and really showed some of the skill that he has, and that was his first flash of skill that I had ever seen from him. And I thought, okay, it is there, and like you said, maybe he just needs the right player with him, but he's one of the guys too. I know when I talked with Brad Haroff before the start of the year, he was one of the guys that said, this is the year where we expect him to be the player that we expected him to be when we drafted him, if that makes sense. I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, but
it makes sense.
Another one of those guys, yeah, that you kind of scratch your head and you see the flashes and you almost wonder, like, why doesn't this guy put up more numbers? And there's a million things that can be said to that, but yeah, we'll have to see if he's one of those guys, because I think he played well in those last 2 home games before heading out onto the road.
Yeah, like he only had 4 goals last year, 5 the previous season, but to only have 1 this year is...
Yeah, the expectations were quite a bit higher because he's 19. He's been around a long time.
Yeah, 3 years, not 4.
I was expecting him to be like Whitehead kind of last year to this year, getting like 14 goals.
Yeah,
goals
I'm not expecting him to score 30 goals
There's
this year.
still half a season left.
Yeah.
But I don't know. 28 goals. The Pats have 28 goals from their 5 19-year-old forwards.
Yeah.
That's
not enough goals.
That's almost to the point where the alarm goes off in your head when you come to that realization, I think. And I don't know, it's funny because, like I said, you have a player like Sam Aremba that can really turn it on for 3 games, and Ty Spencer starts scoring at the pace that you'd expect him to, and it can turn around quick, but we're already at the Christmas break, so
it's at the make or break part of the season.
Yeah, you're at that crossroads where with the deadline.
6 games to the deadline.
Yeah, the deadline. And I totally get the point about, if you're a bubble playoff team going for a minimum of 2 extra home gates, but from a pure hockey sense, I think there's players on this team that aren't guys that can be the guy, but they're complementary pieces for a lot of teams that have star players. And I think that's how you have the opportunity to make some moves to eventually build towards the prime years of Bridgman and Krestanowicz and Allman and Temple, and even Cameron Kuzma, who played fairly well as a 15-year-old in training camp this year.
Yeah, like we talked about these younger guys, right? So you look at Jackson Vaughn, the step he's taken this year, like the increased role he's taken, move to the middle. That's a guy that's really, I think, is primed for a good step here in the second half. If they do move a couple of these older guys, that he takes another increased role, and into the next year as an 18 next year, that you can expect maybe more.
And now that the scouts are watching him, he's getting better.
Yeah.
So it's
And I wonder,
it would be nice for him to get a bigger role.
and I almost wonder, and I know, like I said, he got hurt, but I almost wonder if Corbin Vaughn is the most improved player. Now, obviously, there's a lot of teams who don't get a lot of opportunity to see, but is he the most improved player in the entire Western Hockey League? Like, he has really been a force this year, and obviously not going over, but just from what he was last year, he's come back and he's just leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last year. And obviously it's tough as a rookie and it's your first time playing this type of hockey, but he's
and not having an opportunity playing behind all those
yeah,
guys.
and that's the thing with a lot of these guys, they just didn't get that ice time last year. But I would almost throw it out to say he could potentially be the most improved player in the Western Hockey League. And obviously you have to give a lot of credit to Jackson Vaughn as well, who has played a lot better this year too. But yeah, that's a player that's really impressed, and hopefully he's back soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so some of these other guys that, you look at Mushimansky getting his first couple goals here.
4-point night.
Yeah.
And then 2 games later, he's scratched.
Yeah, like that's like tough to see that, right? Like you get a guy, confidence could be any higher, right? And then he's got to sit, right? It's unfortunate.
That's the problem with having a bunch of older guys on the team. They got to get the older guys in if they want to win. That's the whole idea. We want to win,
but they're not winning with them in. That's the problem.
That's the idea.
I know
we got the older guys.
Yeah,
best opportunity to win.
No, for sure. I mean, Mushimansky's not going to come out and he's not going to be a point a game player.
He's not going to score 4 points every game, but
no, he's not even going to be a point a game player.
He could turn into that.
If you give him the opportunity as a 17-year-old, he could be a top 6 guy as a 19-year-old, when those other guys that I've mentioned are the players that the Pats are expecting them to be in a couple of years. And then all of a sudden he can be the complementary player to the Cole Temple, who's a star player. He could be the guy that plays the wing when Cole Temple's the number 1 center. But yeah, if you're not playing as a 17-year-old, you're going to be still learning as a 19-year-old because you didn't have those opportunities to learn when you were younger.
And he has shown that he can play. Like 4
He's-
points in a
he's-
game. That's
And he's a hard worker too.
I was going to say, he's got
like-
a physical side to his game.
He's like Ty Spencer, where he's just so tenacious, but he's a little bit heavier, I think, than
Quite
Ty
a
Spencer.
bit bigger.
So
Yeah.
he's got the work ethic as well, and if he can learn to develop his skill a little bit as a 17-year-old, then I would love to see him turn into the guy that's the winger to Cole Temple, who's the number 1 center one day, or Corbin Allman too, even.
But to sit on the bench or to sit in the stands doesn't help build that up.
No, absolutely not.
You got to play.
Yeah.
I mean, teams have this issue every year, right?
Every team does.
Every team does. And it's like, okay, how much do we play our young guys? How much experience, at what cost do we play them, right? It's such a catch-22, right? And so, I mean, so you're looking on the back end, like Vaughn, like he's really stepped up.
And the latest weekly report, which was last week, came out this week.
6 to
He's
8.
still 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
He's been 6 to 8 weeks for 6 weeks now. So
it's potentially
That's
a
February.
lot longer than we initially thought from what I've heard, but
'Cause
without
6 to 8
speculating, it's
6 to 8
a
weeks
while.
It's still 6 to 8 weeks. So
Which is really unfortunate.
100%.
You hate to see that
He was stepping up so well.
for the team and for the person that he is. He deserved all the credit that he was getting. It's tough to see.
It kind of reminds me of a guy we were just talking about before we started recording. We're watching on TV now. Riker Evans, the year he broke whatever his leg or his foot there.
Yeah.
You could see the rise he was making, and I mean it didn't affect him in the long run, but it was just so hard to see him miss that half season or so. I think a guy that kind of came out of nowhere was Bridgman. I mean, he's quietly just playing a solid defense, like
top 4 role.
pretty much
With
right?
3 20-year-olds and he's 16.
Yeah.
17,
Right?
pardon me.
Yeah, and just a list guy, local guy here, just a list guy. Like, he's got some size. He doesn't play overly physical, but I think he's just starting to learn that how to play against older, stronger guys here. But I think he's a kind of a diamond in the rough that they And I know when they first listed him, Paddock was very complimentary of his game, and he said he's wasting his time playing Double A. He should have been playing with the Pat C's 2 years ago. Or because he played Pat C's last year, I think.
Yep.
So he should have been playing there 2 years ago, he thought, and but he ended up winning, I think, the provincial title with Double A that year. So it's it's another local guy, right? So.
And he's also one of those guys that's got a great personality, at least from what I've seen when we've interviewed him, a lot like Whitehead. His answer when we asked him about playing Double A instead of playing with the Patsies was, well, I got a lot more ice time, so I think I learned a lot more than I would have. And he seems to have that really positive outlook on things too. And you love to see that from young guys, because if he can eventually become the next Braxton Whitehead, then boom, there's another piece in the future that you need. And it's that gel guy and that morale guy that he could be. Just from when we've talked to him post game a little bit throughout the year, he seems like he's got the potential to become a player like that.
Back to Cole Temple. We've talked about him a little bit, but another guy that's out, unfortunately.
He's listed as week to week.
Week to week. Is that the update?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's unfortunate because he was gone there, like we said, for under 17s. Then he comes back, and now he's gone again. And that's a guy that was getting a lot of minutes as a young player.
Yeah, and he wasn't able to get his stride back after he came back from the under 17s.
He was kind of lost. Not lost, but he seemed a little off a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, it was just something different about his game. He wasn't getting as much opportunities. He was getting pushed off the puck a little easier or something. I don't know if he was more tentative or different line mates, different combinations, different everything kind of led to that. I don't know. He just wasn't the same player after coming back from the U17s.
Yeah, sometimes you almost wonder if he was nursing or trying to work through an injury or something like that. Even it was kind of to that point. It seemed a little bit, but yeah, hopefully he's back soon too, because this is it's an important year for him, obviously, because we all know how highly touted he is for the Pats.
The only thing is, though, if he was in the lineup, who sits?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Does
Good, great
sit
question.
Again?
Yeah,
so
I would hate to see Corbin Allman sitting too.
Exactly.
He is the guy that's going to sit, though.
Yeah, the young guys seem to be the ones that are sitting.
Yeah.
What seemed to work early in the season is if a player was like an older player was having a bad game, they would sit, and then all of a sudden the next game or the next couple games they would light it up. That happened to multiple players.
Rotating the older
guys. They were
guys.
rotating the older guys. They had the young kids playing, and then got away from that. Everything changed.
Yeah. I think one of the most consistent players, Tanner Howe. We haven't talked about him, the captain. I mean,
why do we have to talk about Tanner Howe? Because he is the every player.
I guess because he's doing what we'd expected him to do. Maybe.
Yeah.
Scores, blocks shots, kills penalties.
One of the best two-way players in the Western Hockey.
Definitely.
Definitely up there, 100%. And he just turned 18.
Yeah, and that's gonna really speak well for him for teams that are looking to draft him, because he's even said before he doesn't see himself in the NHL as a point per game player. He sees himself as a two-way forward that kills penalties.
Yeah, third line kind of guy,
plays
right?
a third line guy, but chips in with probably 50, 60 points a year. So,
and a lot of teams are looking for players like that are willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
for next year he'd be like a perfect Team Canada player.
Yeah.
He'd be a guy. He's a top line guy here, but he'd be willing to play third, fourth line, kill penalties, do whatever.
Because that's always the struggle for Team Canada to bring. There's so much offensive talent. How do you bring in some guys, or what guys do you bring in to play that third, fourth line role that maybe don't play that on their junior club?
And that's why I think Riley Height and Andrew Crystal don't go, is because they're not going to play that type of game. They're the star players, and it's just their depth. The depth in the talent pool is just never ending. But Tanner Howe would be a guy that fits in perfectly on a third or fourth line, like Fraser Minton might do this year.
And those guys are also both 18 as well too. So
yeah.
They didn't take many of those guys other than Celebrini.
That's true.
17.
Yeah, but he's the next one.
I mean, how could he even got a look this year? Like it wouldn't have been shocking.
No, but they had their 30 guys.
No,
and then they ended up getting that guy from Boston.
Yeah, the pro guy. Yeah,
Poitras or whatever his name was.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about his offensive output this year. I mean, with losing so much offensive talent coming into the season, I wasn't too sure. I knew his complete game was still going to be there because you've seen it last year, how good it was. The last 2 years, really. I just wasn't, not that I didn't doubt him, I just wasn't too sure how if he could be the driving force of this team offensively. And I mean, he's doing a pretty good job as a 17-year-old, right? Like I said, just turned 18 this month here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you'd obviously expect, no matter who you are, to see a little bit of a drop off when I know he didn't play 100% of his minutes with Connor Bedard last year, but you just expect to see that drop off because when you play with a generational talent, they're obviously going to make anybody better around them. And sometimes Tanner Howe would be making a really strong defensive play, and then Connor Bedard would just magically go down and end up scoring a goal, and Tanner Howe would get an assist just for making a smart defensive play. I think we've seen that before with maybe a guy like Nick Henry when he lost Sam Steele and Adam Brooks and stuff like that. So it's just stuff that you'd expect to see when a generational player is no longer with you. But Tanner Howe still in probably a late first round pick, I think, in my mind.
Just think of what kind of point totals Howe would have if these other guys played up to our or their expectations.
Yeah.
Instead of having 39 and 33,
pushing 100 points this year by the end of the year.
He'd probably like 50 points already.
Yeah. And I mean, like he didn't play as much with Bedard last year, with the emergence of Suzdalev. Like he almost lost his position from that one-time shot, right? Like on the power play and stuff. But you've seen him score those goals like 3 feet off the icing line that he's putting those one-timers in. So he had the skill, and it was just, can he put it all together for this year, being that guy, and it's worked out for him. So like I said, his name's going to be called in that first 2 rounds for sure, I think. And
oh yeah, definitely. If he keeps playing the way he has been, he's definitely going to get a look late first round, early second for sure.
Yeah, and I know I've brought this story up before, but like Rhett Gordon was the star here in Regina, right? And he was the guy, even in the WHL, like he was one of the guys, and his pro career didn't include anything in North America. He only went to Europe, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, he's, he thought he was going to do something more, right? And then you see his brother, Boyd, played in Red Deer, and then he did that third line role. Like he played with Washington for how long, and he was that penalty killer like that. I can't remember what his point totals were here in the WHL, but
he wasn't a huge point
No,
getter.
he wasn't, right?
He was a perfect role player.
He was, and that's kind of what Tanner Howe I liken that to, and with some offensive talent.
With more offensive ability.
Yeah, but I think he has a little bit of offensive, but what makes him a full-time NHL player is exactly that. And when he gets a little bit older, I can see him also being an extremely key face-off player, the guy that takes the really, really important draws. I know as a younger guy, it's really tough to succeed in the NHL in the face-off dot, but when he gets a little bit older and a little bit stronger, he'll also probably be one of those guys that's heavily relied upon to take key draws for teams as well.
But just this whole overall game is going to be a key for him to be a long time NHLer. No matter what, even if he's not killing penalties, playing third line, not even maybe taking faceoffs, which would be awesome if he was able to add that aspect to get more wins.
I don't know what his faceoff percentage is this year.
There's been some games that have been rough, not just for him, but for many of the Pats. But as long as he continues on what he's doing, he's going to make it. He's going to make it into a really long pro career.
I think so. All right. Well, is there any other kind of specific topics you guys want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered a lot, but I think like you guys were saying, in the next 5-6 games are probably going to determine what the Pats are this season. Are they a team that's maybe snags the final playoff spot, or are they a team that looks ahead to 2 years from now? It's going to be exciting when the Christmas break ends to see how the team performs, because I think that maybe might be the deciding factor, is if they can come back and play like they were in September and October, or if they unfortunately play like they do in November. That's going to mean it goes the other way. So I'm excited to see what this team does between now and January 10th, because they're right in the middle. They could go one way or the other right now, and the way they play after Christmas is going to probably determine that.
You say 5-6 games. I think it's the next 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
2 against Brandon, 2 against Moose Jaw. Teams that you need to beat. Or division teams that you're behind in the standings. If they don't, then that pretty much sets it for the deadline, I think.
Yeah, and it was nice to see them not mail it in on that 3-3. 3-3 on the road in Alberta right before Christmas. Like, the team could have mailed it in, and I know I asked Parkerberg about that on the last home game after Kelowna there, and he's like, no, we've talked about it. Guys got flights booked, guys got this going, but we're focusing on these games, and it was nice to see them, finally pick up a win, but play good. Like, they should have probably won that Edmonton game. Like, they were in it, and
they could have won the Red Deer game too.
They could have won. Yeah, both went to overtime, right? They were that close to winning all three, right? So it was nice to see them not mail it in and actually put forth an effort that we were seeing, like you said, earlier in the season before this kind of the rough stretch.
And they left it all out there against Red Deer, and they actually did pretty well against Edmonton, who has their number.
Yeah,
on a 3-3 in an afternoon. So
that almost creates another dilemma: is have they rectified the road issues? I know 3 games when you've lost as many as they've lost on the road, maybe 3 games isn't enough of a sample size to conclude that they've turned it around on the road. But maybe it's another conversation starter, and another argument that you can make is, have they turned it around on the road because they were able to get points in every game, but. It's funny. There's so much up in the air with this team right now, just in terms of directions that they can take.
Yeah, it's like you say, everything is up in the air. Like, the deadline is so close. They are on the outside looking in right now, but if all of a sudden they pull off 2 or 3, 4 wins these next 4 games, what happens?
Yeah, this was a team that has had a winning streak of 4 games, 5 maybe. Like you guys said, we're at 1.73-1. So it's almost like it's a team that's capable. They've just got to find the right concoction of lines and stuff. But it would be really tough to be Al Miller right now, because obviously you're extremely competitive. But you also have to be realistic, and I'm glad that I'm not making the decision on whether you stay put with what you got right now or sell.
Yeah,
I'm sure his cell phone is ringing.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's
he's
gotta
making
be.
some calls.
Definitely, and obviously this is a first year with him. We've seen him build some teams with Moose Jaw. They've been pretty good. Weren't able to get over that hump, but he's built some good teams,
and he's made some moves here.
He's made some moves. He said he wanted to wait. What did he say? 10
to 20 games to see what the team was made of, and then
he waited a little longer than that.
A little longer, yeah.
The team, he
but
need to feel him out, and the whole league too, or the conference. Like we said, nobody's ran away with this conference or the other conference yet, right? It's still, everything's up in the air. Like you said, a 3-game win streak, and you're right back in the middle of it. Like you pick up 3 of those 9 wins on the road. You could. You're right in the middle of the pack then.
Yeah, and until recently in the Pats division, no one had really run away with it. I know the Blades are starting to a little bit, but there was a point there where I was really saying to myself, like, where's the Saskatoon team that we all expected this year? Where's the Moose Jaw team that we all expected this year? And Prince Albert even isn't quite where I thought they'd be this year as well, but that's changing a little bit now, and you're finally kind of starting to see some of those teams maybe be the teams that we thought they'd be.
Starting to shake out a little bit.
But for a long point in time, it was kind of like, geez, maybe the Pats are going to get a little bit of help from some of their division rivals who were kind of underperforming to start the season. But yeah, like you guys said, it is kind of you're starting to see that separation a little bit.
Yeah, the Blades, they made that move to get Minton. They've improved quite a bit. They're starting to get up there. They're 10 points up on the Warriors in the division. So
yeah,
they're starting to pull away a little bit. So maybe they'll make a couple more moves before the deadline. But the Pats are only legitimately 8 points out of third in the conference.
Yeah, I know,
so
right?
They win, say, 3 of these next 4. That's 6 points. That puts them well within range of they'd be in the playoffs. So
you could still maybe move a guy or two, and still hope to sneak in, right? If you can get a younger guy back, that's the thing. The rebuild now, you can't get a 16, right?
Or a 17 without permission.
Right? So it's tough to get a 17.
And if you have a 17 signed, you have to ask for permission.
Or they have to ask for a trade.
That's like I was saying, it's easier said than done when you don't want to make moves.
Everything changed after 2018 or
2018.
2018's
right.
trade deadline.
You can't bring in a Jake Lecition.
No.
like a top prime. I think
Nope.
he was 15 at that point.
And teams
right?
are signing so many young guys now. It's making it more difficult to get these young guys.
Yeah, you can't trade for an unsigned guy because everybody's signing. Right?
Yeah, there's almost every week there's 2 or 3 teams adding another 16 or 17-year-old, 15, 16, 17. It's unbelievable.
So that's the toughest part about doing these rebuilds now. You can't get real young. You got to bring in an 18 for a 19. Well, I don't want an 18 for a 19. Like I want
still talking rebuild. We got Pescott and Wilson in those deals, and neither one of them have really caught fire yet. They've played well. They're very similar. They're both big. They both can skate, but neither one's caught fire yet. So hopefully those guys can catch fire a little bit. I know they're not prospects. They're legit players, but it'd be nice to see those guys get going to help with the other guys. Maybe it'll help make them decide which older guys they can get rid of, because like we've said, we can only have 3 of those 19 guys back next year.
Yeah.
They need to do something.
Yeah, they don't have to move 3, but
no, make it a little easier for next
yeah,
year.
because you can always trade a 20 in the off season. It's not easy, but you can trade a 20. It just depends who wants what, right? Who wants somebody.
And Miller did say he does want to get younger and wants to get bigger. So
Yeah.
it would be nice to see that come to fruition. I'm not saying specific players to come in or whatever, but it'd be nice for him to actually be able to do what he wants to do.
Yeah. Put his stamp on the team. That's why he came
Exactly.
back to junior hockey. He wants to build a team. That's what he said. He liked the Team Canada, the Hockey Canada stuff, but he wants to build and generate this team and go on, a run or whatever, build a franchise, right? So
It's funny because to your guys' point a little bit earlier on, if they do come back hot out of the Christmas break and are right back in that playoff conversation, then the hand is forced a little bit, because to the point that you guys made at the start of the podcast, you want as many home playoff games as you can get. And likely if you sneak into the playoffs, you're playing Saskatoon, which would be tremendous for fan draw because it's the second year in a row. Or you're playing Moose Jaw, probably. Maybe because and everybody knows the rivalry that those two teams have, so it's almost kind of like, well, we got to go for it now, because in all likelihood we'll be playing the Blades again for the second year in a row, or there's a decent chance we could play Moose Jaw
Or Medicine Hat.
which
hasn't worked out very well this year.
No, because those guys score goals.
yeah almost as much as Prince George.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up here. Any closing thoughts you got, Kevin?
No, just looking forward to these few days off and getting back into the rink. Hopefully they can get it together one way or the other and figure stuff out. Deadline's coming up soon.
Yeah. You, Drew?
Yeah, like I said, we're going to see the direction that the Pats are going to take very, very soon. And their hands going to be forced a little bit with the deadline coming up. And no, it's been fun. I'm always super excited to have the opportunity to come join you guys and see the team from a closer perspective and a different angle. And it's Christmas time, so hope everybody has a great holiday season, and really excited for the first few games in January. It's going to make a dull month in January really exciting if you're a Pats fan, because we're going to see what direction this team goes in very soon.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. Thanks again for coming on. I always enjoy your perspective. One of the few people that
Actually watch more than 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
It's been tough this year. I've been busy, but
yeah, it is.
You're
definitely.
you're actually watching and paying attention and stuff. There's not enough media that
we can draw upon, right?
yeah, it's unfortunate, and not enough media is one of the reasons why I'm more busy with my full-time job. So it's been tough, but try to catch as much as I can. So yeah, hopefully it can be at every home game in January and February is the goal. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks, Kevin, as usual. Thanks again, Drew. And yeah, everybody have a Merry Christmas and happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year.
Take it easy.